It took some doing to find some challenging roads throughout the state of Florida, and while I couldn't find any that go this way or that way, I found some that will definitely challenge a 5,000-pound car that plugs into a wall. Greetings from near Lake Okeechobee, Florida. From behind the wheel of a car you and I never usually drive, a Ford. This one, the Mach-e GT. Wanted to do one of our short episodes with this car, kind of get to know it because you and I have driven basically all of its competitors. With that, let's get this thing into the fastest mode, which is unbridled. Get it? Mustang? Really though, this is not a Mustang. And here we go with 4,962 pounds, or depending on how you express your weights and measures, 2,250 kilograms. With that, all-wheel drive. Oh yeah, it's quick, but it's not as quick as one would think it should be for an all-wheel drive EV, and here a little bit of understanding of what's underneath this car. It's two motors, one in the front, one in the back, 358 kilowatts, which translates to 480 horsepower. In terms of how does that compare to the regular Mach-e, that is over 200 horsepower more. Then there's the torque, 600 pounds. However, the car you're looking at here is the performance, which gives it another 34 pounds of torque. 0 to 60 in the regular GT is 3.8 seconds. 0 to 60 in this is 3.5 seconds. Now, as a basis comparison, we're going to bring this up a lot in this short episode. The EV6 GT, that car, 576 horsepower, and it's noticeably faster, at least the feel of that car. Then there's the driving dynamics of this car. The ride quality here, it belies the ridiculous weight. This is 5,000 pounds. I would argue this is one of the best in terms of sporty EVs to drive in terms of ride quality. Now let me qualify that. The Porsche is unusually good, but you and I learned, these are the only crappy roads I can find in Florida. And that really demonstrates the ride quality here. It's a little bit harsher than what you get in other EVs. Even the performance ones, they're kind of softly sprung because of the extra weight. The only one that really doesn't do that trick is the BMW i4. Specifically, one of the best ones is the two-wheel drive, the cheap seats one. This rivals that car in terms of ride quality. Unusually good. It is better in terms of ride quality than the Kia EV6 GT as well as the regular EV6. Then there's the business of storing and managing energy. They're a 90 kilowatt hour battery. Yes, that's 20 kilowatt hours more than a basic short range Mach-e. Now in terms of range, in the GT, it's rated by the US government 270 miles of range, but the performance, which this is, 260 miles of range. Now, I've already driven this quite a bit here in southern Florida. I started, it said 230 miles of range, and I actually exceeded that, and then I charged it up overnight, so really got it to 100%. And when I got back into the car in the morning, it was 261 miles of stated range. That said, I turned around, pulled the car out of the driveway, and I drove it 85 miles north, and it only took about 60 miles off the range. So something tells me there is some fudging in the numbers here, and perhaps this can go a bit farther than what the US government is stating. That in turn works in conjunction with a 10.5 onboard kilowatt charger. So far, my only experience in charging this has been with level 2 in a residential setting. I am going to try a DC fast charger when I take it down to Key West tomorrow. And then the design. I never like to tell you guys what you can see. Rather, there is a great data point that proves the design works here. So no one would argue that the Tesla, whether it's a Model 3 or Model Y, that is the volume EV car by a lot. No one comes close. However, the only one that came even remotely close to competing with the monthly numbers, sales numbers, of a Tesla Model Y, the crossover, which this is, was this. Nothing else has even, like the Ioniq 5, the Kia, those sell well for an EV, but nothing to the numbers this car sells, which tells me the design works. Now, on the inside, not as successful. You guys know how I feel about screens. In this case, it's this horrible, huge screen that is tacked onto the dashboard. Obviously, Ford has been doing this in this as well as the pickup trucks. And the problem here is it's a screen. It's tactile feel. Look at all the fingerprints. I've been driving this car now for 3 or 4 days. That's a problem. Everything that you interact with a vehicle is in the screen. There's only one knob, and that is the volume, which I do like and sets it apart from the Tesla. Everything else can be accomplished through the steering wheel controls or obviously voice. Now, before you jump all over me and say, voice is good, you can do the screens, no, you can't. The processor speeds in most of these things is not good enough yet. It's not ready for prime time, especially in an application where you're driving a 5,000-pound vehicle going 60, 70, 80 miles an hour. You need to keep your eyes on the road. Here, it's got another problem where the Ford UX, I gotta say the Ford Sync was better than this. It was more sorted out. This, it doesn't work well with a brand new iPhone. I've tried different ways. Every time you get in the car, it doesn't connect. And that's using it via the hardwire USB, not over wireless Apple CarPlay. Every time the system can't get it right. What Ford has done here is trying to do too much in reinventing the wheel. They need to be more like a car like BMW has done with their UX in the iX as well as the i4. It's the best of both worlds. And Ford does have some good UX in their other vehicles. Let's bring that here. Then while we're on technology, the BlueCruise, which is their level 2 autonomy. I have used it up and down the Florida Turnpike, up and down 95. And this, it is arguably the worst level 2 autonomy I've ever experienced in my life. It's not as bad as like the Jaguar in terms of keeping it in the middle of the lane. The Jaguar and the Land Rover, they bounce back and forth. This is somewhat straight. However, this one, I don't trust it at all. There's been too many situations where I've been on the freeway and it wants to wander out of the lane. And then there's the speed limit control. It's a bit too intrusive than other systems that you and I have driven. And then while you and I are in the interior, a little tidbit with this Ford Performance model or Performance GT, it changes the seats, which are very supportive, very comfortable. But now spending like 5 or 6 days with it, they creak. I don't know if you can hear that back there. They're split seats, so there's more shoulder support, which is magnificent. But I don't know if it's like the build quality that's really fooling with us here. Because Ford, I'll be honest, one of the things I don't like about Ford, the tactile feel is not great. And some of that is still on display here. Details like this, as well as the speaker grills, the suede trim on the front of the dash, as well as on the seats. Nice touch. But that's where we get into the cost of this car. This, not cheap. The most basic one is in the low 60s. This one has the $1,500 panoramic sunroof, which does not open. And then this one has the $5,000 performance package, which adds a 34 extra pounds of torque. It changes the wheels, makes the car look a little bit better. And then, of course, the seats. The problem is that EV6 GT that I brought up at the beginning of the episode, 586 horsepower. The interior is a little bit better than this. It's not quite as good as the Ioniq 5. The BMW i4 we've driven, you can get those cheaper than this. And that's the problem with this car. It's great to drive. Like, the driving dynamics, the ride quality, one of the best out there. It's below the BMW, but one of the best. However, at $70,000, I'm going to save $9,000 and I am going to pick the EV6 GT over this. And it's not really a design thing because they're both attractive cars, they both look different, and they stand out in the world of any car, not just EV. Like, I'm driving this thing around Florida and Miami, it's a flashy area. I can't tell you how many people have stopped me and asked me about this car. You'd swear this thing was a Lamborghini. Which brings us to the wish list. And here, it's probably about the money in the UX. We need to change the UX, do the same thing. This is not as bad as the Volkswagen, where they just have to throw it out and start from scratch. This, all it needs is, like the Mercedes, they need to have more knobs to control the fan speed as well as the temperature and the HVAC. That's really it to fix this. The rest of the interior, maybe in the $70,000 one, perhaps add some bits. Like up here, this is hard plastic. That shouldn't be the case in a $70,000 vehicle, even one that starts at what, $40,000, $45,000, $50,000. Some of that has to be changed. But I am just one man, and this is the point of the episode where I turn this around to you guys to opine in the comments below, or via our social media, MotoManTV, all one word, MotoManTV, all one word, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And with that, would love your feedback on this newer format of episode in order to get some more cars on the show. And number two, if you get any value out of this, would love it if you'd share these episodes with all your friends on your socials. Until I see you in the next episode, bis später.